Good evening, Avram. Let's see. Uh-oh. Let's see if I'm getting sound. I am. There. Nope. I'm not getting sound from you, Avram. Before I do any of this, let me go back to guests. Yeah, I'm on the audio channel. I'm not getting any movement. Oh,
how about now?
Now I am.
Okay, I don't know why I had two different channels for the Bumblebee. I think because I had NVIDIA Broadcast on here, I was testing something with it, and it wants to do something. So I disabled it.
All right.
Disable it.
How are you doing, friend?
All right, not bad. Not bad.
That's good to hear. There's just a warning for everybody. There's always the possibility that I end up with a coughing fit tonight. It's not likely, but it's not impossible. So, all right. I've got everything set. I assume we're talking AI content creation.
Yes, there's so much. It's new stuff is coming every day.
Seems like every couple hours.
In fact, I'm opening. Yes, I'm seeing if I can get ChatGPT. Oh, good. It's actually available right now, so I can live demonstrate ChatGPT.
Excellent. I want to say hi to Tyrell in the chat room. Yes, you're the first to comment on YouTube tonight.
Hey, excellent. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, stick around. Give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. We want to hear about it. Okay, and you saw the other four?
Yes, I did.
I had to talk about Prenda. We started covering this story literally a decade ago. Our first article was in June of 2013.
Well.
I saw it come across and I'm like, okay, we've been making fun of these guys for 10 years. I can't stop now.
Okay.
All right. All right, I think I've got everything in place. Let me make sure I hit the record button. All right. What's the overlay set to? Yeah, not the right thing. All right. All right, I'm ready. You good? All right. Then let's... So close. All right. And here we go. This week, peripheral sales are on the decline. Xbox is back on the rise. Prenda Law is on the prowl, and Justin Roiland is on his way out. It's Sunday, January 29th, 2023, and this is episode 640 of F5 Live, Refreshing Technology, proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat, through a podcatcher like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn, or a myriad of other options, through our live stream platforms, livestream.com, Twitch, or YouTube, where you can join the community and get ad-free versions of F5 Live and Piltch Point, or on our website, plughitslive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are two ways that you can do that. The first is Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. You can go to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us in the studio. Give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. If you're not able to join us live, that's okay. You can always go to plugkitslive.com/subscribe, and there you'll see all of our shows, including F5 Live, Piltch Point, Plug Kids Live Presents, and a whole lot more. And you'll find all the ways to watch, listen, and follow along. A little housekeeping before we get into it. If you watch any of our CES content, you'll know that we've got some new podcasting 2.0 stuff on the horizon. Blueberry's just launched a whole bunch of stuff we're super excited about. We're working on implementing it here in the studio. It will be coming, hopefully, in the next couple of episodes. You'll be able to listen live if you want. You'll also be able to do all the other interesting podcasting 2.0 things with the paid comments and the whole. It's all coming. Todd just did a great presentation this weekend at the podcast conference over in Orlando. Very excited about all of it. And speaking of CES, Plug Kids Live Presents has a ton of content already, and has a lot more coming. You're not going to believe this, Avram. Our schedule was so full this year. Unbelievably full.
Pretty full.
Yeah, I'm so glad. We had a couple of weird times, but generally, I think we did at least 100 live interviews, and then from what I can tell, there's another 30 or 40 from the floor. It's big. We did a lot this year, and it was really exciting.
I'm so sad that I did not get to go to CES this year. Not just because I didn't get to see you and the crew, although that's the biggest reason I'm sad. But it seems like there was a lot of really neat stuff. It seemed like it was a real CES again.
Yeah.
For the most part, we had for Tom's Hardware had 2 people there, and so I was on working a lot, even though I wasn't there. Was putting up a lot of articles based on what they did. They would go to events and they'd be real busy, and I'd call our people on the phone. And I'd say what did you just see? Oh yeah. Well, what did you think of it? Okay, I'm gonna write that. So it it seemed like there was just so much interesting stuff. What do you think was the most interesting thing that you saw at CES?
So that's an interesting question. So first, yes, agreed. Felt like a regular CES. Even Robbie from Benji Lock, he was on. He's like, we're back. Last year was a trial run. We're back. This feels right. And before the show, we did the TPN pre-show in December. And Marlo, we always ask the question, you and I do it too, right? Do we think this is going to be evolutionary or revolutionary? And Marlo from the Tech Ranch said, I think it's going to be revolutionary. And he was not wrong. So for me, the thing that I thought was most interesting was the standards. There were a number of interesting standards that showed up. There was so there's Qi 2, which is an evolution. It's not a breaking change. It's an enhancement on the Qi standard, including magnetic charger like MagSafe for the iPhone, which I thought was pretty cool. There was, trying to remember the name of the company.
Wi-Fi 7.
Yeah. Yep. Wi-Fi 7. The stuff that the HDMI Alliance is doing. There was this standard for ceiling mounted things that replaces, random silver box with screws and wire nuts. That basically makes it safe and easy for anybody to swap out their fixtures, and basically all of the construction alliances in the U.S. and outside the U.S. have said, we're in. This is it. So basically, all
Yeah,
new
you need a new
construction.
house to be built, though. Yeah.
Right. Basically, all new construction is going to have this, but you can also easily retrofit. If you're, you can have an electrician do it, or if you're handy yourself, it's you take the wire nuts out, you do the wire nuts, you put the 4 screws onto that silver box, and now you can snap things in. It was a really cool standard, and then I'm trying to remember the name of it right now because, sometimes I have the memory span of a guppy. Volt Safe. So Volt Safe is an outlet standard change. It's 3 concentric circles, and it's magnetic. And so basically all the outlets can spin. We spend money now to get outlets that can spin. It's all built in. It's a really cool standard. It's got all the safety things that you would expect from power like this. Basically, they've taken what we loved about the AfterShokz headphones and their chargers and just made it more powerful. Right. It's really slick, easy retrofit on that, and they're working with the construction groups to talk about future implementation. It's super cool. They're working with they've got a plan. I said, here's what I see as a timeline, and they're like, yeah, that you've 100% got it. That's our timeline. I'm like, you've got your adapters. Next, you've got to work with the cable manufacturers. Get me a regular computer cable, a Mickey Mouse cable, a figure 8 cable, a flathead cable. They're like, yep, that's in works now. I said, then
you can buy it right now.
Yeah.
You can buy a Volt-Safe magnetic plug extension cord for block heaters. I'm not really sure what that does. It seems like for something inside your car. But Amazon has it.
Okay. Well, and so if you can get your regular computer cable, a Mickey Mouse cable, a figure 8, kind of your standard plugs, that's a great next step. And then they want to get the manufacturers to start offering it as an option in the package, and then they'll be good to go. So, I mean, anytime you do a standard change, there's challenges, but I think this one's worth it. It's really cool. I had it in my hand. You kick the cable, you don't have to worry about pulling your computer off the desk. The things that are nice about MagSafe and stuff like that. But on the wall, it's pretty cool. We gave it for Plug Hits Live. We gave it our pick of the show.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's in the PC hardware space, I don't know if there's anything that was groundbreaking. We saw things that were iteratively faster.
And a video card the size of a semi-truck.
Oh, hey, look. The video cards just get bigger and bigger, right? But I think the thing that we saw was, new CPUs from Intel and AMD, nothing, which was fully expected. Some actual PCIe 5 SSDs being shown. That's nice. But, and of course, everybody using AI as a buzzword for everything, even when what they're saying is AI is really more along the lines of just good computer function. Seems that AI is a buzzword that people use for any time computers do anything at all.
Even when they make decisions based on very simple programmed logic, they're calling it AI.
Right. So one of I forget which company it was, but we've seen a couple of these that are yes, this, our software has AI in it. And what was the software was what the fan configuration was for a gaming laptop. It knows whether you like it quiet or cool, and it decides. It doesn't seem like there's a lot to that.
Yeah. That
right?
That sounds like pretty simple flick of the switch logic.
Yeah. Also, you would probably just want to decide yourself anyway. So I don't know if that's really doing you any big favors.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it was a busy show for us, but it wasn't, I wouldn't say anything was groundbreaking, but it was nice to see the show was back.
Yeah.
Is back, and things are happening. Also, I think last time we talked, we hadn't even been Christmas or New Year's yet.
Correct.
So, show you my new toys that I got for Christmas.
Nice.
So these are my new keycaps. These are drop.com dasher keycaps. They're SA, or actually technically MT style keycaps. They're meant to look like the old Data General terminal keycaps.
Yeah.
So I love these. Oh, fantastic.
I love the accent coloring where it's like
so they're
dark and light like
blue
that.
and dark and light blue. Yeah, it's really nice,
and it's a great pairing of colors.
Yeah, it is. I mean, but they didn't come up with this. This is going back to these are meant to look retro. In fact, if you have seen the show Severance on Apple TV, or if any of our audience have seen the show Severance on Apple TV, these are the keycaps they have on the show.
Oh yeah?
Yes. I mean, I think they may have the original one, but they have terminals that look like the old Data General terminals, maybe they are, on the show, with a trackball on the side of them, and they have these keycaps. So, it's so that's pretty cool. So, that's been and they're more comfortable to type on, so I really dig them.
Nice.
And then I got
you and your keycaps. I love how into the keycaps you've gotten.
Oh, I'm so into it. But I don't know if I could surpass these. But what I do now is what I want to do is every month or two, take keycaps off, wash them, and then put a different pair on for a while. So although it will be hard to not have these, because I was actually typing better. The feel of these it's not just aesthetic. The feel, I had some nice SA keycaps before this but these are so nice. These are MT brand. Oh, but the other thing I got was this thing, which I'm still learning how to program, which is the Pimoroni Inky Frame 5.7. It is a color e-ink device with a Raspberry Pi Pico W that powers it. So right now I have it showing a picture, but you could have it showing all kinds of stuff and changing periodically, and it has Wi-Fi. But you see, it's not plugged in, and it's still showing the picture because it's e-ink. So I put a family picture on it, and I could change that. The other thing that you can do with it, although the 5.7 inch model is a little big for this, is it has this hole, and you can use it as a badge.
Sure.
So you can wear it with a lanyard or whatever. So
ironically, it looks almost exactly the size of a CS badge.
A little, yeah. So you could use it for that. That was originally what I wanted it for, but now I'm it's a little big. There's a 4-inch version that you can get. I might get the 4-inch version, so I have that as a badge. I mean, the thing is, you could put your badge on it, right? You could put whatever information. If you don't want to change it all day, you don't need a battery.
Right.
You could just wear it, right?
Yeah.
So
if the barcode was detailed enough, you can even go get lunch with.
Yeah. Oh, so Pimoroni also makes one called the Badger that is 3 something inches, that is black and white, not color, and that's much cheaper. It's $15. This one is $80-$90. And that is, very specifically made to be a badge. It comes with a lanyard or whatever, and you could wear that around. Although I like the idea of color ink and wearing a color one. Although this is so nice, I kind of don't want to wear it. I'm just using it right now for family picture. But what I want to do is actually, you could program it in Python, MicroPython or whatever. I kind of want to program it to do to show stats or whatever periodically, update itself with maybe how much traffic my website is getting, or things like that. Maybe I'll get the daily traffic, and then I'll just wear that as a badge and wear it around my office so people know how we're doing. Like, hey, look, we're doing really well. Look right here. But anyway, so that so that's that's kind of fun. Those are my like main holiday gifts this year. So it yeah, I mean it was fun CES. I got some fun new toys and a lot to talk about.
Yes, for sure. Before I forget, Sky X was the standard name that I was trying to come up with for the ceiling stuff. So you'll know, and anybody who's ever been in the Sand slash Venetian Expo Center, on the second floor, there's a big glass barrier that looks over the escalators. It was covered in the logo, like wrapped all the way around. How I could have possibly forgotten. I had to walk past it to get to and from the studio all the time. The fact that I forgot that name is surprising. But anyway, that's the standard for the ceiling mount stuff. But anyway. All right, well, we've got a lot to get down to tonight. But as a reminder, if you were watching us on Twitter or Facebook, the free ride is over. You got to come join us over on YouTube or Twitch. Follow us to f5live.tv/join us, and we'll see you over there. For the rest of you, let's get down to it. This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, tablet, Xbox, games, or a whole lot more, you can get them at the Microsoft Store. Remember, current students, faculty, parents, and active military can save up to 10% off almost everything. To browse the products and learn more about the discounts, you can go to f5live.tv/Microsoft. Well, just about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I mean, you and I had a conversation, I guess, April, I think, of 2020. We had a conversation about how peripherals for computers were starting to become difficult to find. It was the beginning of the pandemic, the beginning of what we knew to be the pandemic. Turns out it started way earlier than we thought, but it was the beginning of what we believed to be the pandemic. And there were lockdowns, and all of us started working from home. And so companies were buying computers, and computers have notoriously bad webcams. And so they were buying webcams. And you'll remember the Logitech C920 could not be found anywhere. Anytime one showed up in a GameStop, we got an alert. Oh my goodness, it's a C920.
Right.
Well, it's been a couple of years now, and that boom has ended. We saw some reports out of the PC companies that shows historically low PC sales for the previous quarter, and now we've seen Logitech put out their quarterly earnings for the last quarter, which is their quarter 3 that ended in December, which is wildly confusing. I hate it when that happens. Doesn't matter. Anyway, their Q3 that ended at the end of December, they were down 22% year over year, which was already low from 21. And the biggest hit category was webcams. 49% decrease in sales. And, I see all this analysis. Well, why? Well, because webcams don't wear out.
You could say the same for almost everything.
But I mean, so keyboards and mice do have, they're touched, right? They do have a failure
Right.
rate.
Yes, it will
Computers,
take a long time.
it does. Oh, I mean, I've killed some. In gaming, you kill them surprisingly quickly sometimes. But um, you know, those are theoretically consumables, right? A webcam sits and stays mostly untouched, which explains why the webcam category is a 50% cut. Everybody bought one.
Right. Why do you need another one? Why do you, I
Exactly.
mean, but you could also make that argument. I mean, like for example, laptops and desktops. I was looking this up the other day what the replacement life is, right? I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't find the replacement cycle for the latest numbers on replacement cycle for laptops, which I would love to have.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw one on I think what is this? Statista
Yeah.
or whatever that claims that it's the normal life cycle, the normal average life cycle for a desktop is like 5.5 years, and now it's going up to more like 7.5 years or
Yeah.
something. So, like, if you have something that works well enough, most people aren't going to replace it just to replace it,
Right.
unless there's some compelling new use case. But
Right.
so we had something that didn't work well enough, which were the built-in laptop webcams. They weren't very good,
Right.
right? In most cases, were not very good. So people said, "Hey, we need something a little better when we're working at home." They got it. Uh, the
And now they have it.
shortages kind of went away, and now they have it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, now we could wonder if, let's say, I mean, I don't imagine this happening because there's just so little appetite for people to do it, even if, let's say, a new pandemic happened that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
COVID and like people were really convinced that you need to stay inside. Like, it's hard to see it happening, but let's just pretend that it did happen and people had to stay home again for 6 months or something like that. Um, would we see people buying more webcams then? Or I'm not even sure because I think they bought them the last time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, every time there's a major snowstorm, there are a whole bunch of people who go out and buy snow shovels. So you have to wonder, didn't they have a snow shovel from the last snowstorm?
Right. True.
So, right, like you would think that they would have already had it.
I mean,
But
you're always going to have moving loss, right? There,
right,
there'll be some of that. Um, with snow shovels, you know, maybe it's people moving into a snow area from a place that wasn't, or into a house from an apartment, or at least there I can come up with a couple. Not a big. It's not gonna, it's not gonna be a giant annual number, but I can come up with some use cases. All I can
I
come
mean,
up with
I could.
webcams is moving loss, or the dog ate it.
Well, or people joined the workforce that weren't in it before. Although I'm
Sure,
not
true,
sure that that's a ton of people in the last
right,
couple of years, but maybe there's I don't know. But we're also starting to see better quality webcams on laptops.
yeah,
That's
true.
been something that we've seen. Laptops going to 1080p. Uh,
Also, potentially a result of
oh
COVID.
yeah, I'm sure it's a result. I'm sure it's a result of it.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, but to be fair, they should have done this before. Like
yeah,
people have been doing web conferencing a long time. The fact that people were in lockdown is not the only reason to do it. Like even if you were working in an office, you still do video calls with people. Therefore, you still need a good webcam.
yep,
And the quality of webcams had not been very good. But I should also point out in the case of Logitech that their level of innovation on webcams is not good. Right?
yeah,
They have not they are not the like they are the well known they're the big name in webcams,
right,
and they've got like a good in the case of like the C920 series, which
mm-hmm,
includes like the C922 and all those. They've got probably a good mainstream webcam,
mm-hmm,
but their high end, like with the 4K or whatever, is not as good as
yeah,
other high end. Like
yeah,
they have, I think their last 4K webcam is the Brio.
mm-hmm,
The Brio is not the best 4K webcam, and they came out with it several years ago. So they're not innovating.
yeah,
Meanwhile, perhaps because they started working on this stuff during the pandemic, Dell has a couple of really fantastic uh, webcams. They've got a 4K and a 2K that are really good that have come out in the last couple years.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we're also seeing Razer has announced had one thing and they've announced another.
I
They have
love
the
my Razer.
Keo Pro, right?
Yeah.
So Razer's been innovating. Now maybe Razer's targeting a slightly different group than Logitech, although Logitech could be targeting that group, which is streamers, because there's people who are going to step up.
Especially how Logitech has screwed this one up is beyond me, because they bought Blue, right?
Yep. Yep.
Well, in fairness, they bought Mevo as well, the camera that I'm talking to you on right now. Logitech now owns, which is a super solid camera and can be used as a webcam, but it is $400 and it's not, what it's not exactly what it's for. It's for streaming, right? They've bought all this streaming stuff, and yet they seem to have forgotten that webcams can be great streaming accessories. Razer knows it. How Logitech screwed that one up. They were the name in webcams, and somehow they seem to have tripped over themselves trying to give away the lead.
I think that they're, having met with them a bunch, my sense of Logitech is that they have like a different kind of, like, their structure doesn't necessarily put them in a, like, they've got a gaming group, and then I don't think webcams are really part of the gaming group. And then they've got like the productivity group, which makes things like this wonderful Logitech, MX Master 3S mouse that I love. And so they have those groups, and they haven't. So they've got like, oh, here's our gaming group to try to appeal to cool young people or whatever, and then here's our like stodgy group that is doing like webcams, I think, and they haven't really figured. I don't know. They haven't really figured out how to put it all together. Whereas like Razer, they're not really going for office people.
They know who they are.
Use their Keo. Dell. I mean, I don't know if Dell's popular with the streamers.
It's like Microsoft when the updated Office came out with the ribbon bar, and every team had to build it themselves. There wasn't like a unified component. They had to keep rebuilding for Word and Excel and PowerPoint. Everybody built the control. There's no talking between.
Yeah, I think they need to, to rethink a little bit, but anyway, I'm not surprised. I mean, we also saw some negative reports from Microsoft this week, showing that Windows OEM Windows OEM sales, which are tied to new PCs, dropped. So there's a lot going, but look, I mean, the nature of economic cycles is the nature of, I guess, the market, right, of investors is they want to see growth, and they don't really think very much about why past growth occurred. So like, it's not that like, oh man, people don't like PCs anymore. People don't like peripherals anymore. It's people are, all sitting on their iPads or something. No, what happened is we had an event that caused a spike in sales, and now people who bought stuff in 2020 or 2021 are not as excited to buy the same stuff in 2022 and 2023.
Right.
So
those sales potentially would have been leveled out across several years. Webcams, there was an unnatural spike.
Yeah, I mean the webcams, who knows? But sales of PCs and other stuff, related stuff like peripherals and monitors, like, yeah, of course it's gonna, like, if you bought it, you're not gonna buy it again so soon.
Right. The only exception is, corporations that do it on leases, right? Leases might be coming up in a couple of months. So in a couple of quarters, we might see 3-year leases end and PC new PC shipments go up because of that. But, outside of that, for the most part, there's not a whole lot of reason for companies and individuals to be doing big upgrades.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the industry wants to, I don't know, first of all, they need to be realistic about what sales mean. they need to either create something where the innovation it's such a big leap that you need the new hardware to do it.
Yeah.
That you need new hardware to do it, or you need to find new people. You need to find new people to get computers who don't have one.
Yeah.
So, which I don't know. I think a lot of people have PCs right now, but you might, they're one interesting thing that they might do. And you know what? It's kind of interesting because I saw a little of this at CES actually. Is maybe the industry would like children to have PCs more, because it has. I think that you don't like my son. We built him one when he was like turned 10, but I think probably, and I don't have the statistics for this, probably in the home, probably kids may be getting Chromebooks from school and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
but you probably don't have a lot of younger kids with gaming PCs. So the question is, what age do you want them to get gaming PCs? Could you try to, I don't know, push it to younger ages or whatever? We did see something a little bit interesting at CES this year, where one company, I think it was it Cooler Master or Thermal Take? One company was actually, or somebody else was actually selling like kid-friendly PC cases. They had like little monsters on, like little cute monsters on them, like a friendly looking Frankenstein or whatever.
Nice.
And so like kids could sort of build their first PC with it.
Sure.
So maybe that's maybe that's a way of, I don't know, growing the market. But on the other hand, prices are still very high. I don't know a lot of people who want to spend, thousands of dollars on their kid's PC. I mean, maybe the best case scenario is you have a parent who builds PCs and they're like, okay, kid, you can have my old graphics card and I'm going to get a 4090. Maybe it's something like that. But anyway, yeah, maybe pushing more members of the family to have a computer would help. I don't know if they can really do that, but
Right.
But it's tough. You got a very saturated market that is just on a massive refresh.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is what it is. In my book, the analysis is easy. There was an unnatural spike, and that took what would have been level sales and pushed a lot of them over here, and now we're going to be low for a while. At some point, it'll pick back up, but we just compressed it all like a mountain into
Right.
one short time period. There's only so much ground. We pushed some of it into the air. We created a mountain. Now the rest of the ground had to go somewhere, and down's the only option. So
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like a complicated analysis to me. And everybody's like, well, I don't understand how it's happening. It's like, how do you not understand? This seems pretty straightforward to me.
It's very, yeah, but people just want to see it, think that growth is endless and growth should just continue with it unabated, without, and I feel very badly for all the folks that we're seeing be laid off as a result of this. And then we saw massive layoffs at Microsoft and I think Intel and some other places, Google,
Facebook. Amazon.
right? And it's all like, oh, tech is bad now. No, what happened is they saw a surge, they hired more people. Now they're not happy with the amount that they're spending, so because they're seeing a decline. Never mind the fact that a lot of these companies, despite the fact they saw a decline, are still profitable. So, everybody expects more and more and more profit, which may not be sustainable. Endless growth is not sustainable, but you have companies that are doing, like, I would think that if you are making more money than you're spending, you're doing pretty okay. And what
Especially
I saw
right
is
now.
Microsoft is still turning quite a profit. They just are down from what they were doing. So, I feel like the expectations of investors and the media and everybody is part of what drives this thing. It's like, oh man, you got to lay people off now because you're not as profitable. Well, what do you expect?
And
What
once
do you
one
expect to
company
happen?
does it, it's a domino
Yeah, then it
effect.
becomes a domino effect, and then they're creating a real problem. As opposed to like, why can't we just live with the fact that like you're not going to have the same, like if they're making more money than they're spending, then they're not running out of money. Like we should be happy that companies we invested in are revenue positive. You
Yeah,
know,
they're doing the thing.
they're doing the thing. Like it's not every quarter is going to be the best quarter.
Right.
It can't be.
Yep. Totally agree. It's unfortunate the situation that's been created, but I think they'll get their heads together at some point. We'll level out kind of across the industry. Fingers crossed, I guess. This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all of your devices. You can get a special price and a 31-day money-back guarantee right now by going to piltchpoint.live/PureVPN. I just realized that's not PureVPN's logo anymore. Anyway, I just updated it. It's purple now. Anyway,
Cool.
Yeah, it's actually a really, really good update. I normally don't like big branding updates, but this one was good. Anyway, not the point.
Yep.
Let's talk about AI.
I don't know if I feel intelligent enough to discuss it. So this is the last few months have been we've seen a big developments in the availability of AI, particularly generative AI that can create text and images. And I'm sure a lot of folks have heard of ChatGPT, which is a free. Well, it's not free if you want to use it and use it a lot, but it's free to try out. Bot that you can use to write things for you. You can ask it to questions, and it'll answer you in kind of plain language, and or you can ask it to write an article for you, and that has led to a lot of interesting questions and problems, which I've written about. But first of all, let me actually share my screen and show you ChatGPT, which I hope will be working when I try it. Okay, here we go. Why would it not be working? Because sometimes it gets overwhelmed with all the traffic. So I'm going to ask it to write an article about something. Let's see what I'm going to ask it to write an article about. Something we really know. Write an article about. Well, I asked it before. Should I do how to build a PC? How to set up a Raspberry Pi. Let's see. Let's see how well it does. So you can see it. It only takes a few seconds. It's pretty quick, and it really looks like, once we get this done, it's going to look really pretty convincing. In fact, I should note that a couple things that have happened recently since we've last talked are that a couple of major publishers have tried out not ChatGPT itself, but other AI software. CNET and the parent company of CNET, Red Ventures, tried out have been testing AI generated articles since November, and their articles were about personal finance, and they got some very negative press because they didn't disclose it right away. And then not only were they, kind of caught doing it, but they were caught with some very serious factual errors, even though they said that they were fact checking everything that the AIs wrote. For example, one article said was about getting interest on a CD, and it said that if you have a $10,000 in the bank and you're getting 3%, you have a 3% CD, then at the end of the year you will have earned $10,300. Earned $10,300?
No.
There were just a bunch of there were other errors about things like how much compound interest was and stuff like that. So they had to kind of backpedal a little bit, but an issue, I guess what you call a non-apology. They said, well, we're going to pause for now, but we'll be back with AI because we think it's really innovative and really helps readers. And then BuzzFeed announced a few days ago that they're going to be using AI for some things, not necessarily for news. And Google has apparently, there have been a whole bunch of stories about how Google is very concerned about how AI is going to make their search engine obsolete. And being in the journalism biz, a lot of my colleagues now are freaking out about being replaced by AI bots. They're worried that companies are going to do what Red Ventures did, and they're just going to say like, we don't need these writers. We can just get AIs to do it. Never mind the fact that the Chat GPT was not that the AI made lots of mistakes that they didn't catch at Red Ventures. So I went out and I tried Chat GPT and I asked it to do something. I asked it how to build a PC, and it gave me an answer that was very convincing, but had some problem. But when you dug into it, if you actually followed the advice, you'd end up breaking your CPU. So now let's take a look at the advice that it just gave me on how to set up a Raspberry Pi. See, now first thing you'll notice is this is grammatically correct. It looks like if I were to take this and hand it in, someone might not immediately be able to tell that it was written by an AI. In fact, schools are really concerned about this because it's being used for kids to cheat and hand in their essays. Not necessarily good quality essays, but they could look competent. And, everybody expects that this is going to get better and better. But let's take a look at what we got here. So setting up a Raspberry Pi can seem daunting at first, but with the right tools and a little bit of knowledge, it's a relatively straightforward process. Okay, I guess. By the way, if you ask her...
Before you get too far, the first thing I notice, and I've noticed this because I've done a lot of experimenting with various other AI generating content, that intro paragraph is repeated
Sounds
almost
very
word
familiar.
for word at the end. But it's almost exactly the same at the end.
You're right. The summary, but also the little bit daunting thing, I seem to have gotten that almost every time I ask it how to do something.
Gotcha.
So, one thing, by the way, that was found with the CNET articles, I've read a whole series of this. There's a site futurism.com that has been kind of tracking this AI controversy, and they found that the CNET AI, which is not ChatGPT, but something else that they may have invented themselves or licensed, apparently plagiarized a whole bunch of stuff. Like it took sentences and just changed a few words that were found on other articles and on the web, and just changed a few words from them and put them in. By the way, we talked about this a while ago.
Like a middle schooler.
Yes, I believe we talked about this a while ago, and there's a really interesting question, which is these AIs all learn from someone, right? They all learn from a human human generated articles. So depending on how much they change it is a real question of whether it's plagiarism or not. But one thing they, what they're doing is basically they're ripping off the work of people. Now you could argue that people rip off the work of other people. So I don't know. Anyway, so we'll just talk on this a little bit. First, you'll need to purchase a Raspberry Pi. Okay. You'll need a computer. Okay. They could have said here micro SD card reader and HDMI cable to connect the Raspberry Pi to. Okay. Yeah. All right. They don't.
Yeah, but that's
leave out.
At least an HDMI cable. HDMI cable is an error I see a lot from humans too. So
Yes, that's true. They don't mention what kind of power supply you would need. I mean, so a lot of times what I found with ChatGPT is it will give you information but leave out key details like oh well actually this is the kind of power supply you need. Format the micro SD card. Well, yeah, actually not really. You don't actually. Step is actually not correct at all. Maybe at one point this was something people were doing, but generally speaking, what they use now is they use either they probably use Raspberry Pi Imager, or they use another imaging software, and they just download the image file and write it to the card. They don't format the card. There's no need to do that. There's no help from doing that. Download and install the operating system. Okay, first of all, it's not called Raspbian anymore. For the last 2 years, it's been called Raspberry Pi OS. Also, doesn't tell you where to download it. And once the download is complete, you'll use software such as Raspberry Pi Imager. Yeah, you could do that, but Raspberry Pi Imager has the downloading process built into it, and that's how you're supposed to do it. So, also, wait a second. Okay, so once the operating system is installed, you can insert the micro SD card into the Pi. Make sure the card inserted with the metal connectors facing up. Or label. Okay, I guess this may depend on which Pi you're using. It's time to connect the Pi to your monitor, TV, and the power supply. Once all connection, plug in the power supply. Be prompted to set up your language and keyboard. Oh, but you didn't mention that you might need a keyboard and mouse. I mean, maybe that should be assumed, but they didn't mention it. Configure.
Well,
now you're almost
they also don't say what we're setting this up for. You don't.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
you don't find out until like step 7 that we're setting this up to be used as a desktop, or I guess it's 6.
Yeah. Now I can start. This can include installing the software, changing. Okay, but like, yeah. So there's a lot. The thing that I get about this is that most of this looks right. It looks right, even if it's actually some serious details are wrong. But it's also so broad that it's not very useful, right? Like, okay, sure. Like if you've already done this task, like if you're me and you've already done this a million times, you might look at it and be like, oh, okay, I could follow these instructions because I already know what to do. But, this is just like with the CPU question, the how to build a PC question that I asked it, where one of the steps was insert your CPU by pressing it down until you hear it click. Well, it didn't mention to like raise the tension bar. It just said position your CPU correctly and press it down until you hear it snap into place. Well, CPUs don't necessarily, you don't necessarily hear a snap.
Yeah, and oftentimes if you do, something has gone wrong. You don't necessarily want to hear a snap with a processor.
Yeah, and they didn't say like, oh, at first you've got to like align the little triangle, golden triangle on the processor to, to the triangle on the socket. They didn't say you have to lift a tension bar on the socket. Also, they didn't mention that newer sockets actually have the pins in the socket and the holes in the CPU. Although, to be fair to ChatGPT, it was made in 2021, so there wasn't as much of that going on as now. But anyway, point being that Point being that we are, that there's just key details missing. So, will it get better? Maybe, probably. But the thing is, AIs now, look, there's a good possibility that some people some people in the writing business will lose their jobs because there will be companies that are willing to cut corners and think it's okay. I also want to say we don't know how Google is going to react to all of this. Google's official, like, in other words, is Google going to list AI generated content in search? Google itself has an AI. I think the biggest danger to publishers, and this is a very big danger, is if Google decides they don't need to give search engine results anymore because they're just going to give AI results. Like, if I can use an AI on my site, why would Google link to me? Why doesn't Google just use its own AI? It's got AIs. Use its own AI to. So if I go to Google right now, there are some things that you'll search that you get the answer box, which is when Google gives you, like, pulls some quote out of context from a website and says, "Oh, here's your answer," and that's above the first result. And that alone has been a real mixed bag for publishers, because a lot of the time people don't click on the link in it because they're like, "Oh, thanks, you gave me my information now. I don't need to click your link." And so Google got free content. But the ultimate free content for Google would be if they just have an AI that spits out results, doesn't give people links to anything except maybe in the footnotes to say, like, here's where we got this information, but gives people a very detailed result. People might just say, "Oh, okay, that's good enough. I'm on Google. I got what I needed." And that would put a lot of publishers out of business. Eventually, it would become a really serious problem, because then publishers would start to say, who remained would start to say, "Well, we got to put everything behind a paywall or something, so we don't have Google indexing it, because Google's going to be, AIs are going to be stealing the learning from our work and then putting it up, and then we're going to get nothing from it." So that's a real danger. But there's the other thing, which is that Google says that it is looking to prioritize experience, expertise, authority, and trust. And AI has none of those things. It has no experiences, no expertise, no authority, and no trust. Even a smarter AI than the ChatGPT that got all the details right would not have any of those things. An AI does not have human experiences. An AI does not go out and conduct interviews. An AI does not get exclusives. An AI does not find the scoop. An AI does not explain why something is important to them because they tried it. Now, can an AI do the things that content farmers do now? Quite likely. But the question is, how will Google bless that? I mean, I tend to think that what is going to matter in journalism and in writing is making sure you communicate to people that you had a human experience. I tried this. I did this. This worked for me. That's going to become more important than ever, because generic language, this works, this happened, this whatever, not going to do as well if an AI can just do the same thing.
That's an interesting comment, because we've kind of generally had a policy of third person, right? And I think I'm officially putting an end to that right this second.
I mean, this is not to say that, like, you should use first person for everything, but
well, no, yeah.
But I mean, I think there's definitely, like, we have talks at work a lot about, like, when we're writing about experience that we had, like, we use this mouse or whatever, we don't say, like, this mouse has like 8,000 DPI and therefore it gives you, very fine movements. Like, when we tested the 8,000 DPI sensor, we had very fine movements when we were doing this particular task. Like you, granted, for some people, the AI, the generic stuff is going to be adequate for them.
Mm-hmm.
And Google says that it likes expertise and that it wants to prioritize human experiences, but we don't know if that's going to remain.
I'm saying, but that's today.
But that's today. I don't know. But what I do know is that until they invent robots that can actually look and act like a human, like T800 style robots, there's going to be issues with doing a lot of the jobs that humans do. They're not going to go to AIs are not going to go to CES and walk around the show floor and talk to people. And I've heard some people say things like, well, the AI can email interview questions to someone. Really? What person do you know is going to write an email back to an AI that emailed it?
Yeah.
They're not going to talk to an AI.
Yeah, no, and Gmail and Outlook are going to flag it as spam anyway.
Right, like you can now. AI is, by the way, ChatGPT and other AIs are going to make phishing or making phishing emails much, much more dangerous.
Yeah.
Because you notice that a lot of phishing emails have grammatical errors and everybody gets the same one. They can very easily make unique and custom phishing emails to send to people that look much more legit. Yeah. So that's a real danger.
And the AI, one of the things that my former business partner on the old software company, Mark, and I used to talk about was, with self-driving cars, right? Everybody was like, well, I don't think they're ever going to be perfect. And Mark always said they don't have to be perfect. They just have to be as good as or better than a person. And ChatGPT passed the bar exam in like 7 states last week. That's better than a lot of people. Like it's able to fake it, right? It has.
Yes, but how many students are allowed to bring a search engine with them into the bar exam room? I bet you a lot of people. I bet you a lot of people could do that too if they were able to think very quickly and access
full
any
access
information that was on the internet.
Yeah, and have full access to the knowledge of humanity. Exactly. But what I'm saying is it has gotten advanced enough to fool people, to fool systems, to fool institutions, which, just going into the danger zone that you were talking about with phishing emails and stuff like that, the fact that it's able to even trick or fool institutions like the bar in several states is another level of danger.
Yeah, it is very dangerous. We are going to need better ways of credentialing humans, right? We are absolutely going to need better ways of credentialing humans than we have now. So those are serious concerns, and I think my colleagues who are concerned about the impact on like the future journalism, they should be concerned. But at the same time, like if it's happening, if companies are replacing humans with these AIs, what they're really showing is that they don't really value the content, and especially if you look at what happened with CNET, like they missed major problems with the facts. Now they said that they had humans reading this and that the humans were responsible for catching it, but here's where I believe that they had a human look at it. Although it's hard, we don't really know to what extent and what human it was. But here's something to keep in mind that I've talked about with my friends and family over the last few weeks since it's come out. You cannot have just anybody read, edit, or fact check an article. Like if you take me and you give me an article that was written by an AI about a topic that I don't know anything about, then I'm not going to catch the most serious. I'm going to check the grammar, but I may not catch the most serious logical problems in it because I don't know what I'm looking for, right? So if you take someone who doesn't know anything about finance and you give them finance articles to read, I mean, they earned $10,300. They probably shouldn't have. You should have caught that. But it was really one word, earned versus you would have or whatever. But some of the other things they had about like compound interest and how mortgages work and how car payments work or whatever, like if you didn't normally write about that stuff, you might not catch those things. If I gave you this Raspberry Pi article and you never work with a Raspberry Pi, you wouldn't know that like, okay, Raspbian is actually not what we call it anymore. Or like, you might not catch the fact that it says you need an SD card reader, and an SD card reader is different than a micro SD card reader. If you've never worked with memory cards, maybe you don't know that there's a difference. So, like, you need someone who knows what they're doing to read it. At a certain point, if you can't trust the facts, then having a robot or do it is actually less helpful than having a person. Like, if you need a person to spend a lot of time rewriting that and fixing that and catching that, then you might as well just have the person write it. Like, that's how it is with writers. If I hire a freelance writer and I find lots of factual errors in their work, I'm not going to work with that person again. Yeah, I could spend a lot of time catching their errors, but if I spend more time rewriting it than it would, if I spend about as much time rewriting it as it would have taken me to write it myself, then I don't want to work with that person again. So why would...
Yeah, because it's actually detrimental. It's not helpful at that point.
Right. So if the AIs have to have... So, like, if you have to have a good human backstop for the AI, then you don't need the AI. Then the AI is not good enough, right? And if it's good enough, so like, when will you get to the point where it's good enough? I feel like the same thing about self-driving cars, right? For a long time, we said, and it's still the case, right, with self-driving cars. So now we have self-driving cars in a very few locations. I think there's like one in San Francisco now where you can get like a cab at night. And then there's like pizza delivery in some town in Texas. And then I think Arizona has one small area where you can get a cab, and there's like a 6-month wait to get it just to try it out. But all of those things are backstopped by people watching it constantly, whether they're actually behind the wheel or they're remote at a terminal. So if you need a huge human backstop because you can't trust the product, like, what good is it?
Yeah, and another great example of that, going back to CES, is the Loop, which is the boring company's hole in the ground with Tesla's in it.
Yes.
Part of the drive is automated, and part of the drive is not. There's a guy in the driver's seat who backs out of the space and drives through the busy part of the terminal. Whoop, that gets to the tunnel, and when he gets to the tunnel, the car goes, got it! And like the speed changes. It's like being on a roller coaster. It's the top of the hill, and you're like, oh, here it goes. Woo! When it steals control from the driver. And I'm only saying he because I wrote it twice, and it was a male driver both times. There were female drivers too, but both of mine were male. You knew exactly when the computer took over. You could feel it. Oh, there it goes. And when it returned control, because once it comes out of the tunnel, whoa, you're back to the person, and everything slows down, and you have to press the accelerator and all those things. And so it was a really interesting experience because you got to experience the self-driving nature, which in reality is more like it's a small world because it's more of a defined track than anything in a cave, which interesting. But you got to at least experience that, and it's not like it was going to get it wrong, because if it went too far either way, the tires were going to hit the walls and it can't climb. It's not magic. It was just going to keep going. But but yeah, so it was interesting to see both, and I didn't like the self-driving part of it. I I felt like there was a lack of I don't know, oversight. I don't know if that's the right word. Control isn't quite the right word, but somewhere in there, I felt like I don't know. It was weird. I didn't like it. It was fun being in a tunnel under the
Yeah,
convention center, but and it was way better than
it's
walking. It was a minute and a half to get from North Hall to the far end of the new West Hall. It's a 45-minute walk. It was a
right.
90-second drive. Worth it even if there's people in the car. Don't care. That's
Right.
worth it. But, they're just not there. None of this is there. And having the person in the car, why didn't they just drive through the tunnel? Why
Right,
give
to show
control
you, to
over to the
prove it to you.
computer? It didn't change anything except the speed of the car.
Right. To show you that they could. But
True.
to show you that they could. And that's great when it's a proof of concept. But this is, so I mean, on the other hand, what I think we are seeing is that AI, that just has to work on the computer is much easier to execute than something like a self-driving car.
Yeah.
And maybe that means that like white collar jobs are going to be the ones that are more affected by AI than blue collar ones,
Uh-huh.
because like it's much, from my experience, I wouldn't say extensive experience, but my experience learning about robotics and like what it takes to make like something that's like a human hand, like to make something that can do the work of like assembling something or moving stuff around and fine detail, that's really difficult and expensive.
Yeah.
Much more difficult and expensive than using some cloud computing to generate text or an image.
Yeah. Although, I'll tell you, we had a company on the show again this year, the Tactagon, whose product actually allows you to program robotics by doing it once, and then you're off and running, which I thought was interesting. But yeah. But even then...
That's good. But retrofitting a whole factory and manufacturing process or whatever to do that, or like, let's say, it's McDonald's or whatever, and I need AI to cook the burger and flip the burger and hand the burger and clean the floor and go, like, there's just so many little tasks that you would need to program it for, that you would need to make it do, like
all these because what if they don't want pickle?
Right. Oh, and hardware is expensive. Like hardware like that is very expensive right now.
Yeah.
So I think automation of like those type of tasks, which a lot of people have thought is, oh yeah, that's going to be replaced by a computer, might actually be more coming later than automation of like knowledge tasks, because there's no hardware involved. It's very easy to replace. But nevertheless, my point with all of this is it's not there, and it's not there. It's never going to be able to have human experiences, and so ultimately it's always going to, for things that are regurgitated and things that are, a commodity, not commodity knowledge, it might very well replace some humans, but it's not going to have, ultimately it's got to draw on the work of real humans to have any value.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I actually heard a segment from a political commentator this week who made the same point, that it's not blue collar workers that need to be worried. It's the middle management. It's they're the people who are seemingly being automated away already, and it's only gonna go from there. Now, I know you wrote about this at least once so far, right?
Yes. So yes, we have an article on Tom's Hardware called I asked ChatGPT how to build a PC. It told me to break my CPU. And that went up last week and has a lot of comments and a lot of got a lot of very thoughtful, really actually thoughtful comments about this.
Nice.
So So yeah, check it out.
That's not always been the case.
Yeah, most of them
But
have been really thoughtful.
that's awesome.
I mean,
I'm
most of
glad
them,
to hear it.
most of the comments have been really thoughtful. Some of them are like, "Oh, you don't know enough about AI." They always say that, but then whatever the
Sure.
topic is. But then there
Yeah.
were others who are like, "AI, it can't be intelligent if it's not conscious. Consciousness is not intelligence or whatever." Um, I was doing it. I won't get into this now, but I read some very interesting stories about whether or not general AI is coming anytime soon. That is like AI that can think like a person. Um, some of the experts say no time soon. But
Yeah.
anyway,
We had somebody
uh,
on at
yeah.
Collision a couple of years ago who claimed that they had AI that could think like a mosquito or something. I'm like, okay,
Yeah, right, right. And
great.
part of it is we also don't understand we don't fully understand how the human mind works anyway.
Yeah. I don't think we know how the mosquito mind works either, which makes the claim a little strange, but whatever.
It's all just bits and bytes
Yeah, exactly.
when you're a mosquito.
Digital mosquito for sure. Uh,
Yeah.
well, Avram, a fascinating topic, possibly my favorite we've ever done, and I definitely appreciate it. I always love like the big thoughtful topics when we get into them, and this was
Yeah.
definitely one of those, and I think a great way to uh, get back to the show.
Yeah.
And I definitely look forward to what we talk about next time. This week's Extra Life on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by EXA. EXA brings the latest technology to gamers, offering the most immersive products for the ultimate gaming experience. They've compiled the best elements of cutting-edge ENC tech, the latest in Bluetooth 5.0 and 7.1 surround, plus extra features into their headsets so everyone can enjoy a sensational gaming experience. And they've got headsets for Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, and PC. Plus, they won't break the bank. Learn more about the headsets that are available and any current promotions by going to f5live.tv/exa. This week, Microsoft and Bethesda had what they called the developer underscore direct. We will ignore the underscore for the rest of the segment. The event was a pre-recorded, hands-on with originally supposed to be 4 titles, but in the intro to the event, they scratched out the 4 and wrote 5. The whole thing appeared to be done in a design software, like a collaborative design software, which for a software engineer was a lot of fun to watch. But if you're not an engineer, you may not have recognized at all what the UI of the event was based on. But so they ended up showing off 5 games. There were 2 that stuck out to me, but more than that, what stuck out to me was I finally know who Xbox is. I think everybody knows who Nintendo is, right? Nintendo makes cutesy games with bright colors and happy music. Mario Brothers, Smash Brothers, Legend of Zelda, very colorful games, oftentimes very upbeat music. Even the downbeat music is still generally happy sounding. PlayStation, third-person open world games, Last of Us and God of War, and all very similar. They've got RPG elements to them, but they're mostly open world. You can follow the story or you can ditch it and go somewhere else. Microsoft has always eluded me, and I realized that was the point. Alante and I had a conversation the other night after the direct. Microsoft is the diversity platform. There's a little bit of everything, including from first-party studios. There's you never quite know. Halo and Sea of Thieves, both first-party titles, very different games. And this showcase probably illustrated it better than anything that I've seen from them. Because, E3, here's some first-party titles, here's some third-party titles, here's a bunch of stuff. Meh. But I think this really illustrated it because there was racing, there was an FPS, there was a real-time strategy, there was whatever the hell Hi-Fi Rush is. I don't know that you can put that one in a box. And that's the one that I kind of want to talk about. Yes, Minecraft Legends. If you're a longtime listener or viewer, couldn't care about Minecraft. I have never been able to bring myself to care as many times as I've tried. The Minecraft AR game was kind of interesting for the hour and a half Microsoft let that one survive. But Minecraft Legends, particularly the PvP, has sold me. It's Warcraft 2 with randomized environments. Totally in. Wasn't expecting them to sell me on Minecraft at this event. But we've seen Minecraft. The PvP was some new information. We've seen the Minecraft Legends. Hi-Fi Rush, though. This was the scratch out the 4, and there's actually 5 games. It leaked a couple hours early, but most people skipped the leak because they wanted the surprise. And even if you saw the leak, there was no way of understanding it until the direct. It is, I don't know, it's a bright and colorful, kind of 2.5D, seemingly hand-drawn game that's a slasher game, but it's also a rhythm game. I'm in. I wasn't expecting it because the hack and slash type game generally not my thing. But I'm in on this thing. You can hear and feel the rhythm of the world. And so you actually fight to the rhythm of the soundtrack, and the soundtrack changes based on how on rhythm you are. What? This is a wild game, and I cannot imagine any other place where this game would possibly have success other than Xbox. I can't see it on Nintendo because it's too unique. I can't see it on PlayStation because I think it's out of their target demo. It could have released only on PC, I suppose, but I think Sunset Overdrive proved that Xbox is the place for some weird stuff.
Sure.
And I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Xbox is the platform for people who, maybe they are PC gamers and they want something they can use in the living room, or they don't want to spend the money on an expensive gaming PC because it has the breadth of content that you get on a gaming PC. And there's so much cross compatibility because of Microsoft and the Xbox software built into Windows. So,
and the fact that the Xbox operating system is based on Windows 10/11, that helps too.
Yeah, exactly. So sure. I'm of a split mind about Minecraft Legends. My son is super excited about it because he's a big Minecraft player.
Sure.
We really enjoyed playing Minecraft Dungeons, which was another spin-off of Minecraft.
Yeah. Was that the one from Telltale?
I think so. So it has a very it does play a lot like sort of a Lego game style game almost.
Yeah,
like
that's
you've
the
got
one from
sort
Telltale.
of the third person, and you're walking through, and we actually we played that so much. But Legends, the trailer I saw for it, and then the game I saw for it in the last Minecraft event they had, did not look very impressive to me. The graphics look really bad. When I in what I saw to me, but I'm sure we'll end up getting it because he really wants it, and I'm curious to see how it is. So I'm sure we'll end up playing it, but I'm not. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's supposed to be a tower defense game. I don't know.
It's a little more than tower defense. Because I mean, I guess technically you could classify the original Warcraft and Warcraft 2 as tower defense games. But it's kind of halfway between a standard tower defense and I don't know, League of Legends. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. Which is kind of where Warcraft and Warcraft 2 and I guess Warcraft 3, but I hated that game. Where those lived. Or StarCraft, right? They're kind of in that middle, build a base more than build a base, build units, build secondary base, a little more RTS than just straight tower defense. And that's what I'm excited about. Because Warcraft 2, one of my all-time favorite games. And it's 180 years old, and you can't even find hardware to run it on. Although there's talk that Blizzard might have a new build that's able to run on modern PCs coming, which I'm super excited about. No, that's not proprietary information from anybody. That's rumblings I've heard in the industry, and if that's the case, I'll own it day one. But they don't even have to update the graphics. Just allow it to run on a modern PC and not have it run at 1500% speed, which is currently the problem. Just like Populous, which EA, thank you for rebuilding Populous to run on a modern PC. Anyway, I'm excited about it from that perspective. Yeah, the graphics look odd, but I feel that way about everything in Minecraft. They all feel odd to me. And so this doesn't feel any odder than normal. And I apologize. It wasn't Dungeons. It was story mode that was Telltale Games. Apologize.
Right.
But Hi-Fi Rush. A couple things. One, it wasn't supposed to be part of the presentation. It wasn't one of the 4 games that they said they were going to talk about. It was the scratch it out 5th game. And it launched a couple hours after the Direct. The studio managed to build, test, and release a game without anybody knowing. And it's not a tiny game. It's a serious AAA title. They managed to do the entire thing without anybody knowing until about 3 hours before the Direct happened, when the first leak came out. Which, massively impressive in my book. I have not had a chance to play it yet. Yes, it's out there. Yes, it's been out there since Wednesday. But unfortunately, my life is owned by CES until all the videos are published. So I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to play it for a while, but it looks fascinating. Plus, GoldenEye came out for Xbox this week, unrelated to this, but so I guess it's not unrelated to this, right? It's not part of the Direct, but it is related because that's another weird game. It was a Nintendo 64 title, which was an odd choice for a launch partner because it didn't really make sense on the Nintendo 64. And a couple of months ago, there was a code leak that there was an Xbox 360 version that was complete. And they scrapped it. Because I guess the studio was about to go belly up or something. So the game ended up getting scrapped. The software was complete. The game was done. And they didn't release it because I think it was the studio went belly up. Everybody got fired. The studio shut down. The game never came out. The code somehow leaked online as a fully compilable and runnable game. And people got excited. And I guess they went back to the drawing board and said, hey, Microsoft, we'd like to bring this out. And Microsoft paid to finish it. And so it came out on the One and the XS. A million years later.
I still don't understand why people love that game so much. I guess I just don't get it.
For its time, it was weirdly unique, and there's a nostalgia factor to it.
Okay. I just, like, I tried playing it once, and I didn't play it at the time it was out. I played it recently. I was like, couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess this was good for the day. I don't know why people are so excited about it now.
One of my favorite commentators likes to say that nostalgia is history after a few beers. And there's probably a lot of that involved here. I haven't gotten a chance to play that either, but I'm gonna. Both games are on Game Pass too. On top of it all, both games are on Game Pass, which I think kind of seals the deal on Game Pass for me. That it's still a great deal. I know in 2022, it was not. There was a lot of question about, because Microsoft wasn't coming out with anything. Nothing, it was old stuff that was going to Game Pass for the most part, because there were no first-party exciting titles. There were no third-party exciting exclusives. So there just wasn't a whole lot going to Game Pass. But those 5 plus GoldenEye, I'm in. Makes it a great deal for me again. And for me to have 3 games like stacked up in my queue that I'm excited about. Oh, and then the Red Wave. Nope. Redville. Nope. I don't remember the name of the game. It starts with red. It's Left 4 Dead with vampires. I'm excited about that one too. You know me. How often do I have a stack of games like this that I'm actually excited to play? I can't remember the last time.
Not often.
Yeah. My brother might have still been on the show. I mean, John was on the show for sure. We're going back a long time, which we're about to do again in the next segment, which I'm excited about. But, I mean, we're going back quite a ways since I've been excited about this many games at once. So, congratulations. This developer direct did it for me. So, anyway, that's my current take on the state of Xbox. 2022 was a disaster, but 2023 looks like they've figured it out.
Yep.
This week's news from the tubes on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, plus it actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, dialers, trojans, spyware, and a whole lot more. It allows you to use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. To learn more and to get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. I've got an update on a story we first talked about a decade ago. Other than the Google and Oracle story, I don't know that we've ever been able to do this before. So, I'm pretty excited about this because the organization is insane. If you've never heard of Prenda Law, count yourself lucky. The organization purports to be a law firm, though it's more akin to the mafia. what they did was they went out and they purchased the legal rights to, we'll call it, adult-oriented content. And then they'd go on sites like the Pirate Bay and upload a torrent, or they'd go on to, at one point in history, they'd go on to something like LimeWire, and they'd make the content that they had just purchased available for download. Then they'd sit back and wait for people to start downloading it. They'd grab the IP addresses of the people that connected to their torrents. They'd reverse lookup and then file lawsuits against the people who downloaded it for copyright infringement. So, if they had just done that, they might have gotten away with it. But they made a couple of big mistakes. First, they would send a letter. And the letter would basically say, "You've been sued, but the copyright holder is willing to settle." Uh-oh. Turns out you can't do that. That's extortion. And they sent it in a letter, which gets the mail involved, which is mail fraud. Plus, they would ask people to wire them the money for the extortion payments. Wire fraud. So, we tracked this from the first charge, which was in 2013. It happened over a series of time. They were charged, I think, in 2014, in 2019, at least two of the three. The third one, Paul Duffy, is a name that seems to have just vanished into history. The only place I found his name today in regards to Prenda Law was in our articles. So I don't know what his fate was, but I do know that the two primaries, John Steele and Paul Hansmeyer, are both in prison. They both went to jail in 2019. They have had, well, Steele said, "I'm guilty, you're right, whoop, let's go." And he is in for 5 years on just the wire fraud and the mail fraud. Hansmeyer appeared to be the ringleader of this crazy extortion scheme, even though Steele was the founder of the organization. And he went away for 14 years because his included the extortion charges. Now, that's our history. Where are we today? Hansmeyer wants to get the scheme going again. From prison.
Oh, good.
He has asked a judge for an injunction against the federal government to prevent them from enforcing 3 laws: a wire fraud law, a mail fraud law, and an extortion law that prevents him essentially from practicing law of any kind and engaging in any of the activity that he's in jail for. In this case, copyright infringement lawsuits. He wants an injunction to prevent the federal government from enforcing those laws. Why? Because he wants to hire a private investigator to start filing copyright lawsuits again. From prison.
Well,
which he is in for fraud.
Yes. But it's what I have a question though. So if he did what he was doing, but he had hired a process server to serve people with the lawsuits, would that have been legal?
It's a very good question. We're not entirely sure. So in fairness, process servers were involved because because the lawsuits were legally filed. It's not like they were sending letters that said, we will sue you if you don't settle. That's above extortion. That's a particular level of legal malpractice. I can't remember the term, but like that's a whole other thing that you get disbarred for basically immediately. They were legally filing the suits, waiting for the things to be served, and then sending the letter. It seems like the letter is where everything went sideways for them. If they had, because it showed that they weren't actually serious about the suit was used as a threat so that they could get the settlements. Which
how is this
also
different
is
than
not
the
legal.
recording industry?
What's that?
How is this different than the RIAA suing people for file sharing?
Yeah, so what RIA was doing was slightly different. They weren't actually posting the content. They weren't doing the entrapment aspect of it. They were tracking existing torrents, which was, or other P2P things. They weren't actually initiating, in this case, the torrent. They could download the content that was being illegally shared and then track it, but they weren't putting the content out there in the first place. That was the whole beginning problem. In 2013, the problem came down to that it was essentially a legal entrapment scheme to extort people, as opposed to tracking an existing copyright infringement thing. That there was a weird line. They got in trouble. So
if they just waited
for somebody else to do it,
right? If they just waited for somebody else to infringe, then everything they did, then what they did would have been okay.
They still couldn't have sent the letters.
Right. Okay.
They could have filed the suit. If they had just not sent the letters, probably nobody would be in prison today. It was, right. In the end, it was the letters that got them in trouble.
Right. Because I'm just saying, like, this sounds a lot like, I mean, it sounds like they were trying to make what happened with the RIA with RIA happen. Mm-hmm. They just didn't want to wait for someone to do it to them, which maybe given what they owned, maybe it wasn't going to happen as much or as easily or as frequently as, say, any song in the world. Right. So they had to, but yeah, like and a lot
and RIA didn't own the content; they represented the people who did. So they had a larger catalog to attack on, as opposed to these guys who were, I think they were buying the content from porn studios that were going out of business. I think that's what they were acquiring. I'm not. Again, it's been a decade. The details are a little fuzzy in my head.
They saw this as a business model.
Yes.
They saw this as a business model.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
which is different than RIA, which is an organization whose existence is to protect IP of other people.
Right.
This organization saw a business model of buying and exploiting IP.
Right. But I mean, the
schemes are very similar.
Hey, yeah, it just seems like, this is kind of the seedy side of what RIA was doing. Granted, if you didn't illegally download the stuff, you wouldn't be in trouble.
Right. And in fairness, the suits themselves, again, were legal and filed, but they basically were trying not to go to court. They were trying to avoid that aspect of it, possibly because they'd have been found out. There was some, I don't remember if it was $3 or $30 million that was handed over as part of this scheme, which all in settlement, which is impressive. But I think the first time it went to court, I think somebody said, no, let's do this. And I think that's when things started to go sideways for him. Because I think they presented the letter in court. And that was that was where things really went sideways. Because this has been happening for a couple of years. And basically everybody just settled. And then they ended up, somebody's like, no, let's take this to court. I'm ready. But, I mean, people did get in trouble for a little bit for the copyright stuff because they were illegally downloading and sharing content in the end, because the court ended up with the roster of victims. But in general, they just went, well, you were already victims of this. I think that's probably good enough. But it's a fascinating story. I cannot believe that he's either the hubris or the insanity. I don't know which it is. I don't know the guy personally. But it's either hubris or insanity. To say to the court, I know why I'm in prison for 14 years. However, I'd kind of like to do it again. Can I?
I mean, if he doesn't do it through the mail, then I guess he probably.
Yeah, chances are he was going to try and do it all above board this time, but he's prevented from doing so by 3 separate federal laws.
Yeah.
Obviously, the petition was shot down in just a matter of days. The court looked at the thing and went, I know you, get out. And that was the end of it. But it is fascinating that these idiots keep bubbling up every once in a while. Like, hey, don't forget, we're still crazy. And then they get shot down, and a couple of years later, they'll pop up again. Steele will be out of prison in 2 years. So who knows what happens? Oh, who knows what happens at that point? I suppose we'll have to wait and see. This week's DRM Not Included on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. We all know that you get free shipping on millions of products with Amazon Prime, but you get a whole lot more. Like free music with Amazon Prime Music, free TV, movies, and documentaries with Amazon Prime Video, free games, and a free Twitch subscription to support the content creator of your choice with Amazon Prime Gaming, plus a whole lot more. We've got links to all of these features and some of our favorites, plus a 30-day free trial, all by going to f5live.tv/prime. So this is an important topic, and one that's a little different than what we usually talk about in the DRM Not Included segment, because we don't often get into weird legal things here. We usually leave that for news from the tubes, where we talk about copyright trolls. But this particular one is a serious one that seems that the serious nature of it seems to be being ignored right now because of some fanboying. So, if you have not heard, everybody has severed ties with Justin Roiland, one of the co-creators of Rick and Morty, one of the co-creators of Solar Opposites, and one of the co-founders of Squanch Games that just last month released High on Life. He's also the voice actor for Rick and Morty, for the main character in High on Life, one of the main characters on Solar Opposites, and except for Morty, all of them sound like Rick. Everybody has severed ties because a couple of years ago, he was charged with domestic abuse and not kidnapping. What's the other one? False imprisonment by menace, violence, fraud, and or deceit. The accusation, and the charges were filed by an anonymous Jane Doe. We don't know who it is, for good reason. Famous person, you know, lots of sway. Makes sense. The incident happened in January of 2020. The charges were filed in, I think, May of 2020. But things are just coming to a head now, which, first of all, I find both fascinating and worrisome, because there have been pretrial hearings and things previously. It's not like the case is just now getting started. People are just finding out about it. He's been in court. The information's been available. But Adult Swim announced on, I think, Tuesday night, that they were severing ties. Almost immediately after Squanch Games announced that he had resigned from the studio that he co-created the week before. And then Hulu said that they were severing ties. Adult Swim said that Rick and Morty will go on, that the voice actor will be replaced, probably with two different ones. Squanch Games basically said, so long, good riddance. And Hulu has not said exactly what's going to happen with Solar Opposites going forward. So far, most of the attention seems to be paid to what the future of Rick and Morty is going to be. And is the show over? Can it go on without him? Yes. And who cares? That's not the important part of what's happening here. The fact that these charges were filed a while ago, the case is coming up into trial several months from now, and all of this seems to stem from the fact that he resigned from Squanch, and then ties were severed by the other guys. It leaves questions, and the internet has some possible answers. And those answers aren't great because there are other accusations out there pending, including that he was communicating inappropriately with underage girls via Twitter. Normally, I ignore this stuff because it's a rumor, right? But these women have receipts, which makes it a little more believable. They've got Twitter chat histories and things like that. The girl who was underage at the time, he mentioned that she was inevitably going to be a cam girl when she turned 18. He called her some names, which on a family-friendly show I will not say. And he referred to her as jailbait, suggesting that he absolutely knew that she was underage. Not great. He also communicated with a young woman, adult at the time, but young, a musician on YouTube who had done a concept album about Rick and Morty. And she was so disgusted with what happened that she stopped watching the show that she did an album about because she couldn't listen to his voice anymore. I feel like maybe everybody's trying to get ahead of this.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what they're trying to get ahead of, but I think the criminal charges are probably bad enough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but does there have to be another shoe to drop?
But if the criminal charges are enough, why didn't it happen in May of 2020?
Because I guess they weren't, or people didn't know about them.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Maybe it's because the trial's coming up and there's been more attention paid to what happened publicly, And so maybe they're just trying to get ahead of that, and maybe these are shoes that they don't know about or weren't expecting.
I think the real issue that we're getting at with this is the difficulty for brands
Mm-hmm.
to decide when to cut ties with someone
Yeah,
who is accused
of something.
of something of something, right? Like, what's the point? Because there's a lot there's a lot, right? So, like, if someone's accused of something, you want to be fair in terms of innocent until proven guilty.
Mm-hmm.
You also probably are thinking, like, the brands are probably thinking, like, this person's valuable. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to cut ties if we don't have to
Right.
cut ties.
And when do they
They're
go from being a commodity to a liability?
right. So, I mean, like, if you're whoever this, whatever companies, they're probably sitting there like, well, we don't know yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
sports teams are in the same.
maybe they were waiting for the pre-trial stuff where maybe he was going to be exonerated, or the charges could have been dropped or something like that in some sort of a pre-trial process. Maybe they were waiting for that to happen or not before making a decision.
Right. Because, there are people who have been accused of stuff and then it just kind of goes away. And,
Mm-hmm.
like, we
Rob
don't
Lowe.
know whether Rob Lowe, well, what's her name? Uh, who was just recently sued? Tiffany Haddish. So,
Hmm.
did you see that whole thing where Tiffany Haddish was sued by somebody for there was a child sex abuse suit against her in September, but then
Oh, yeah,
like
I think I did see
they
that.
just they just, like, whoever it was, the person suing her said, oh, this is just a misunderstanding, and they withdrew their suit. um
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I remember this. But you're right, it kind of went away. I had forgotten about it.
So it kind of went away. So I think that she's, like, okay to do whatever, right? Because someone was suing her and never got to trial. We don't know if there was any real merit to any of this, but over now, so you just don't know. On the other hand,
Yeah.
you have a situation like, I don't know if you follow baseball much, but uh, the Los Angeles Dodgers had a pitcher named Trevor Bauer who was accused of sexual assault, but not charged. He was not
Sure.
arrested or charged, but they did. Um, but they, but nevertheless, Major League Baseball suspended him for like a year, and then the Dodgers cut ties with him. So, like, so it seems
Mm-hmm.
so, and so the question was, so, like, there is one where there was some embarrassing evidence that he did this or whatever, but
Right.
he was not charged. But I guess it didn't rise to the level of that he could be charged with a crime, but he was dismissed, right? Suspended and dismissed.
Yeah.
Um, so, and then, so I think there's a lot of different things going on here. So then,
Yeah.
like, Tiffany Haddish is sued for something, but the person dropped the lawsuit, so now it's over. I guess Michael Douglas uh, was, I think, during Me Too stuff, the height of Me Too, was accused of some things, but it doesn't seem to have had a real negative effect on his career. He's still in Ant-Man, right? Um,
Right.
so it's, I guess it's hard to say, like,
Kevin Spacey.
what gets, well, he's really done, right? Like, he
Even though he won the court case.
yeah, but
And
he did
it's
so much other stuff,
yeah, that's true.
right? He was done, like, he but but right, like
he was hanging on by a thread, and Anthony Rapp cut that thread.
I mean, but the point is, right? So brands have to. I don't like envy any of these brands their decision,
no, because
right?
it's treacherous water to tread.
It's a difficult thing because we as a society believe in innocent until proven guilty, but at the same time, and some of these things aren't even really crime, or some of these things are civil suit, not crime,
right?
Not like not being convicted.
Mm-hmm.
But and then you have the case of was it the Cleveland Browns who had that quarterback who like was settled like 26 sexual harassment lawsuits or something,
Woof.
and and they signed him to a new deal. He got like
Sure.
and these were supposed to be like he kind of was accused of kind of assaulting some massage people or whatever, like
Oh, yeah.
uh and there and they Cleveland, and he got a suspension, but the football team was like, that's okay, we'll live with the suspension, we're signing him to a new contract because we think he can win football games. So
in fairness, the NFL's pretty notorious for that.
Yeah, the NFL has a really bad record in terms of, but it seems to depend on how well you can win football games, because
True.
like they've had others where I forget the name of the guy who like was caught on video, hitting his girlfriend in an elevator a few years ago, and he was gone forever, right?
Okay.
But others who are like Ben Roethlisberger or others who've done like been found to have done all kind of stuff, like or accused of doing all kinds of stuff, still get to play. So like
because it's that commodity versus liability line, I guess.
So it's I don't know. Maybe the bar is lower. The bar for behavior is lower in sports, maybe than it is in entertainment. But maybe they. I mean, here's another one we could talk about as Ezra Miller.
Yeah.
Right. They have been arrested for many crimes.
Yeah.
And
some of them weird.
And the Flash is still coming out.
Yep.
The Flash is still coming out. DC invested a lot of money in that, so they made They made Miller go to a bunch of I don't know, some kind of rehab or something to, I guess, maybe try and improve their image. Like, look, they have a problem. They're trying to get better, but that's a classic. Someone has a problem. It's done something bad, then they're going to go to some kind of rehab.
Luxury resort stay, and you come back and go, I'm better. False.
Right, but I mean, like, I've seen people go to rehab. Like, wasn't there someone on Grey's Anatomy who went to rehab for saying homophobic slurs? Like, you don't go to rehab for that,
Yeah.
So it just these brands are in a difficult position.
Yeah.
I do feel some sympathy for their positions, because they have to balance like being kind of fair and not terminating someone without due process, with like trying to maintain a good public image, with having someone who's valuable.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. I think they have to be seen as parting ways with him.
Yeah.
And
doing so publicly.
Which is
why when Adult Swim made the announcement, Squanch came out shortly after and said, "Oh, he resigned from us last week."
Yeah. Right. So I would not be. I mean, I'm sorry to say that if he is found, is exonerated or just found not guilty, or the charges are dropped, and some of these other things, shoes that are dropping, don't turn out to be very serious, or he
Yeah.
apologizes, or he goes to rehab or something, he might be invited back. But right now they have to make a point
Yeah.
of separating from him. Now, every time I hear about a story like this, I think about, like, what if you are a company that is signing up for someone's, I don't know, brand or personality? Are you going to have to are they going to have to start doing more research into the private lives
Right.
of people they associate with, so that they don't embarrass the brand? Like, think about just the amount of times there's been somebody that you like, oh man, this person was really essential to this, I don't know, to this brand, to this product, to
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and then, uh-oh, it turns out that that they've been a sleazebag all along, right?
Yeah.
Or uh
Because not everybody can pull a house of cards.
right. Yeah. I mean, but like,
That was an impressive pivot, to be perfectly honest. They did a good job with that one. But not everything can pull that off. And so the question that's been raised is, can Rick and Morty do it? Right?
uh,
He's executive producer. Um uh I think he ran the writers room, and was the voice of Rick and Morty. And yes, of course it can go on. Because I think Dan Harmon has been the one who's actually been controlling the thing. And I've got friends that can do those voices as good as as Roiland
yeah,
can. So I think these properties can go on without him. They're animated, which makes it easier, right?
yes,
Because
yes,
there's no face to have to replace. You don't have the ant on Fresh Prince, who
yep,
people just, everybody hated, and they just replaced her, right? it's
yep,
it's more like Meg on Family Guy, where everybody hated her, and they just replaced her and kept moving. Everything's been fine ever
yeah,
since.
yeah. I think that property will be fine,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, but there are other circumstances where
Mm-hmm.
it does make a situation difficult when you,
Yeah.
it, like, a lot of people really liked Joss Whedon, and after all the details that came out about him, it's kind of poison.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Kind of taints
I mean,
everything
not
he's
only
touched,
it taints all the things that he touched, right?
which is a
So,
lot.
you know, which is a lot. So, probably, I know there have been people who, like, really liked Buffy, and they're like, I don't know, maybe I've been a fool, maybe I've been fooled this whole time. So, yeah, it's
There,
tough.
there's a conversation that comes up in music and seems to be ignored in all other media forms, and the topic is, you know, separating the artist from the art, and your attachment to things before you knew and after you knew, right?
Yep.
And whether or not, or if the thing happened later, right? This seems like all of this stuff happened 2020 and beyond. There don't appear to be any accusations before that. So does that taint the stuff before that too? Right? There's all this weirdness around, artist versus art. Can you listen to Chris Brown's music? You know, can you listen to R. Kelly? Right? There's all these, and with
Yeah.
music, people tend to go back to those artists, even after. So, you know, it's an interesting topic. The whole thing
Yeah.
is fascinating. I think all three organizations, well, both organizations, Hulu and Adult Swim, responded correctly. Obviously, Squanch was on the receiving end of that one, which is a little different. But I think they made the right move, right? I think he's about to be a huge liability. There was no way that this story was going to stay as quiet as it's been all this time. It was gonna hit hard, and they needed to force push, right? Get away before everything went totally sideways on them. So, and I think knowing that the organizations and the production companies, right, made the right decision when they knew what was happening, when the time was right, they backed away. I think that probably protects the IP, at least. I mean, we'll see, but I think that probably protects the IP in my book.
His NFTs are probably worth less.
Sure. Anything that has his name on it specifically is probably worth less. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all of this plays out and how season 7 of Rick and Morty goes. Honestly, it's Adult Swim. I hope they don't just hire Tracy Morgan the way they did with the Squidbillies, because that was weird. But hopefully they will hire sound-alikes like we're hoping that Fox will do for Bob's Burgers with Jimmy Pesto, since he's been fired. Hopefully we'll have a sound-alike there. Hopefully we'll have sound-alike here. There'll be a continuity, and everything will be fine. Well, that is our show. It was good to be back in the new year. I know we hit a longer show than normal, and we hit a couple of serious topics tonight, but you know, you never know how the show's gonna go. For those of you who joined us live, we definitely really appreciate it. We've had a number of people in the chat room tonight watching live. We appreciate it. If you didn't join us live and you'd like to in the future, Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, you can go to f5live.tv/join us. If you can't join us live, that's okay too. Pluckitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows: F5 Live, Piltch Point, Pluckits Live Presents, and a whole bunch more. And all the ways to watch, listen, and follow along. In that, of course, is still a ton of CES content. Like I said at the top of the show, we did... my current estimate is 130 interviews total, including the National Technology Day. If you didn't see it, we teamed up with the National Day Calendar, our good friends at the National Day Calendar, because the second day of CES was National Technology Day. And so we did a big National Technology Day broadcast from our tower, which was really cool. That stuff is coming in the next couple days. Very excited about that. So definitely check that out. And I guess with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we'll see you back next time. Ciao.